A look of consternation crossed Toji's face. Everybody, what are you talking about? I thought just the two of us were going to spend a couple of pleasant days here at some quiet place. If there are a lot of people around, I'm not going. Refusing the pelican, he strode angrily on ahead. When Urgo tried to explain, he cut her off and called her an idiot. All the rage that had built up inside him on the ship exploded. I'll stay somewhere by myself, he bellowed. Send the plug-in away. How could you be such a fool? You don't understand me at all. He snatched his sleeve away from her and hurried on. They were in the fish market by the waterfront. All the shops were closed, and the scales strewn about the street glittered like tiny silver seashells. Since there was virtually no one around to see them, Ogo hugged Toji and attempted to soothe him. Let go of me, he shouted. If you go off by yourself, the others will think something's wrong. Let them think what they want. Oh, don't talk like that, she pleaded, her cool cheek pressed against his. The sweetish odor of her powder and her hair penetrated his being, and gradually his anger and frustration ebbed. Please, begged Oko. It's just that I'm so disappointed, he said. I know, but we have other chances to be together. But these 2 or 3 days with you, I was really looking forward to them. I understand that. If you understood, why do you drag a lot of other people around along? It's because you don't feel about me the way I feel about you. Now you're starting on that again, said Oko reproachfully, staring ahead and looking as if the tears were about to flow. But instead of weeping, she made another attempt to get him to listen to her explanation. When the runner had arrived with Toji's letter, she had, of course, made plans to come to Osaka alone, but as luck would have it, that very night Seijuro had come to the Yomogi with 6 or 7 of his students, and Akemi had let it slip out that Toji was arriving. In no time at all, the men had decided that they should all accompany Oko to Osaka and that Akemi should come along with them. In the end, the party that checked into the inn in Sumiyoshi numbered 10. While Toji had to admit that under the circumstances there was not much Oko could have done, his gloomy mood did not improve. This had clearly not been his day, and he was sure there was worse to come. For one thing, the first question he expected to hear would concern how he had made out on his canvassing campaign, and he hated to have to give them the bad news. What he dreaded far more was the prospect of having to take the kerchief off his head. How could he ever explain the missing top knot? Ultimately, he realized there was no way out and resigned himself to his fate. Oh, all right, he said. I'll go with you. Have the pelican brought here. Oh, I'm so happy, cooed Oko as she turned back toward the dock. At the inn, Seijiro and the others had taken a bath, wrapped themselves up snugly in the cotton-padded kimonos provided by the inn, and settled down to wait for Toji and Oko's return. When, after a time, they failed to reappear, someone said, "Those two will be here sooner or later. There's no reason to sit here doing nothing." The natural consequence of this statement was the ordering of sake. At first, they drank merely to pass the time, but soon legs began to stretch out comfortably, and the sake cups to pass back and forth more rapidly. It was not long before everybody had more or less forgotten about Toji and Oko. Don't they have any singing girls in Sumiyoshi? Say, that's a good idea. Why don't we call in 3 or 4 nice girls? Seijuro looked hesitant until someone suggested that he and Akemi retire to another room where it would be quieter. The none too subtle move to get rid of him brought a wistful smile to his face, but he was nevertheless happy to leave. It would be far more pleasant to be alone with Akemi in a room with a warm kotatsu than to be drinking with this crew of ruffians. As soon as he was out of the room, the party began in earnest, and before long, several singing girls of the class known locally as the Pride of Tosamagawa appeared in the garden outside the room. Their flutes and shamisen were old, of poor quality and battered from use. Why are you making so much noise? One of the women asked saucily. Did you come here to drink or to have a brawl? The man who had appointed himself ringleader called back, "Don't ask foolish questions. Nobody pays money to fight. We call you in so we could drink and have some fun." "Well," said the girl tactfully, "I'm glad to hear that, but I do wish you'd be a little quieter. If that's the way you want it, fine, let's sing some songs." In deference to the feminine presence, several hairy shins were retracted under kimono skirts and a few horizontal bodies became vertical. The music started, spirits rose, and the party gained momentum. It was in full swing when a young maid came in and announced that the man who had come in on the ship from Shikoku had arrived with his companion. "What did she say? Somebody coming?" "Yeah, she said somebody named Toji's coming." "Great, wonderful, good old Toji's coming." "Who's Toji?" Toji's entrance with Oko did not interrupt the proceedings in the least. In fact, they were ignored. Having been led to believe the gathering was all for his sake, Toji was disgusted. He called back the maid who had shown them in and asked to be taken to Seijuro's room, but as they went into the hall, the ringleader, reeking of sake, staggered over and threw his arms around Toji's neck. "Hey, Toji," he slurred, "just get back. You must have been having a good time with Oko somewhere while we sat here waiting. Now that's not the thing to do." Oji tried unsuccessfully to shake him off. The man dragged into straggling him into the room. Drag him struggling into the room. In the process, he stepped on a tray or two, kicked over several sake jars, then fell to the floor, bringing Toji down with him. "My kerchief," gasped Toji, his hand speed to his head, too late. On his way down, the ringleader had snatched at the kerchief and now had it in his hand. With a collective gasp, all eyes looked straight at the spot where Toji's top knot should have been. "What happened to your head?" "Ha ha ha, that's some hairdo." "Where did you get it?" Toji's face flushed blood red. Grabbing the kerchief and replacing it, he spattered, "Oh, it's nothing. I had a boil." To a man, they doubled up with laughter. He brought a boil back with him as a souvenir. "Cover the vile spot. Don't talk about it. Show us." It was obvious from the feeble jokes that nobody believed Toji, but the party went on and no one had much to say about the top knot. The next morning it was a different matter altogether. 10 o'clock found the same group assembled on the beach behind the inn, sober now and engaged in a very serious conference. They sat in a cycle, some with shoulders squared, some with arms crossed, but all looking grim. Any way you look at it, it's bad. The question is it true? I heard it with my own ears. Are you calling me a liar? We can't let it pass without doing anything. The honor of the Yoshioka school is at stake. We have to act. Of course, but what do we do? Well, it's still not too late. We'll find the man with the monkey and cut off his top knot. We'll show him that it's not just Gion Toji's pride that is involved. It's a matter that concerns the dignity of the whole Yoshioka school. Any objections? The drunken ringleader of the night before was now a gallant lieutenant, spurring his men on to battle. Upon awakening, the men had ordered the bath heated so as to wash away their hangovers, and while they were in the bath, a merchant had come in. Not knowing who they were, he told them about what had happened on the ship the day before. He furnished them with a humorous account of the cutting off of the top knot and concluded his tale by saying that the samurai who had lost his hair claimed to be a leading disciple of the house of Yoshioka in Kyoto. "All I can say is that if he really is, the house of Yoshioka must be in worse shape than anyone imagines." Sobering up fast, the Yoshioka disciples had gone looking for their wayward senior to question him about the incident. They soon discovered he had risen early, spoken a few words with Seijiro, and departed with Oko for Kyoto right after breakfast. This confirmed the essential accuracy of the story, but rather than pursue the cowardly Toji, they decided it would make better sense to find the unknown youth with the monkey and vindicate the Yoshioka name. Having agreed upon a plan at their seaside council of war, they now stood up, brushed the sand off their kimonos, and moved into action. A short distance away, Akemi, bare-legged, had been playing at the edge of the water, picking up seashells one by one, then discarding them almost immediately. Even though it was winter, the sun was shining warmly, and the smell of the sea rose from the froth of the breakers, which stretched out like chains of white roses as far as the eye could see. Akemi, wide-eyed with curiosity, watched the Yoshioka men as they all ran off in different directions, the tips of their scabbards in the air. When the last of them passed her, she called out to him, "Where are you all going?" "Oh, it's you," he said. "Why did you come search with me? Everybody's been assigned a territory to cover. What are you looking for?" "A young samurai with a long forelock. He's carrying a monkey." "What did he do?" "Something that will disgrace the young master's name unless we act fast." He told her what had happened, but failed to raise even a spark of interest. "You people are always looking for a fight," she said disapprovingly. "It's not that we like to fight, but if we let him get away with this, it will bring shame on the school, the greatest center of the martial arts in the country." "Oh, what if it does? Are you crazy? You men spend all your time running after the silliest things, huh?" He squinted at her suspiciously. "And what have you been doing out here all this time?" "Me?" She dropped her eyes to the beautiful sand around her feet and said, "I'm looking for seashells." "Why look for them? There are millions of them all over the place." "It just goes to show you, women waste their time in crazier ways than men." "I'm looking for a very particular type of shell. It's called the Seashell of Forgetfulness." "Oh, and is there really such a shell?" "Yes, but they say you can only find it here on the shore at Sumiyoshi." "Well, I'll bet there's no such thing." "There is too. If you don't believe it, come with me. I'll show you." She pulled the reluctant youth over to a row of pine trees and pointed to a stone on which an ancient poem was carved. "Had I but the time, I'll find it on the Sumiyoshi shore. They say it comes there, the shell that brings oblivion to love." Proudly, Akemi said, "See, what more proof do you need?" "Aw, that's only a myth, one of those useless lies they tell in poetry." "But in Sumiyoshi, they also have flowers that make you forget, and water too." "Well, suppose it does exist, what magic will it work for you?" "It's simple. If you put one in your obi or sleeve, you can forget everything." The samurai laughed. "You mean you want to be more absent-minded than you already are?" "Yes, I would like to forget everything. Some things I can't forget, so I'm unhappy in the daytime and lie awake nights. That's why I'm looking for it." "Why don't you stay and help me look?" "This is no time for child's play," the samurai said scornfully, then suddenly remembering his duty, flew off at full speed. When she was sad, Akemi often thought her problems would be solved if she could only forget the past and enjoy the present. Right now, she was hacking herself and wavering between holding on to the few memories she cherished and wanting to cast them out to sea. If there really was such a thing as a seashell of forgetfulness, she decided she wouldn't carry it herself, but instead sneak it into Seijiro's sleeve. She sighed, imagining how lovely life would be if he would just forget all about her. The very thought of him turned her heart cold. She was tempted to believe he existed for the sole purpose of ruining her youth. When he importuned her with his wheedling protestations of love, she comforted herself by thinking of Musashi. But if Musashi's presence in her heart was at times her salvation, it was also a frequent source of misery, for it made her want to run away to escape into a world of dreams. Yet she hesitated to give herself up entirely to fantasy, knowing it was likely that Musashi had forgotten her completely. Oh, if there was some way I could erase his face from my mind, she thought. The blue water of the inland sea looked suddenly tempting. Staring at it, she grew frightened. How easy it would be to run straight in and disappear. Her mother had no idea Akemi entertained such desperate thoughts, let alone Seijiro. All the people around her considered her a very happy creature, a little flippant perhaps, but nonetheless a bud still so far from blossoming that she couldn't possibly accept the love of a man. To Akemi, her mother and the men who came to the tea house were something outside her own self. In their presence, she laughed and joked, tinkled her bell and pouted as the occasion seemed to demand, but when she was alone, her sighs were careful and solemn. Her thoughts were interrupted by a servant her thoughts were interrupted by a servant from the inn. Spotting her by the stone inscription, he ran up and said, "Young lady, where have you been? The young master has been calling for you and he's getting very worried." Back at the inn, Akemi found Seijiro all alone, warming his hands under the red quilt covering the kotatsu. The room was silent. In the garden, a breeze rustled through the withered pines. "Have you been out in this cold?" he asked. "What do you mean? I don't think it's cold. It's very sunny on the beach. What have you been doing?" "Looking for seashells. You act like a child." "I am a child." "How old do you think you will be on your next birthday?" "It doesn't make any difference. I'm still a child. What's wrong with that?" "There's a great deal wrong with it. You ought to think about your mother's plans for you." "My mother? She's not thinking about me. She's convinced she's still young herself." "Sit down here." "I don't want to. I'll get too hot. I'm still young, remember?" Akemi, he seized her wrist and pulled her toward him. "There's no one else here today. Your mother had the delicacy to return to Kyoto." Akemi looked at Seijiro's burning eyes. Her body stiffened. She tried unconsciously to back away, but he held her wrist tightly. "Why are you trying to run away?" he asked accusingly. "I'm not trying to run away. There's no one here now. It's a perfect opportunity, isn't it, Akemi?" "For what?" "Don't be so obstinate. We've been seeing each other for nearly a year. You know how I feel about you. Oko gave her permission long ago. She says you won't give in to me because I don't go about it the right way. So today, let's—" "Stop! Let go of my arm. Let go, I tell you." Akemi suddenly bent over and lowered her head in embarrassment. "You won't have me, whatever happens." "Stop! Let go." Though her arm had turned red under his grasp, he still refused to release her, and the girl was hardly strong enough to resist the military techniques of the Kyohachi style. Seijiro was different today from his usual self. He often sought comfort and consolation in sake, but today he had drank nothing. "Why do you treat me this way, Akemi? Are you trying to humiliate me?" "I don't want to talk about it. If you don't let me go, I'll scream." "Scream away. Nobody will hear you. The main house is too far away. And anyway, I told them we were not to be disturbed." "I want to leave. I won't let you." "My body doesn't belong to you." "Is that the way you feel? You better ask your mother about that. I've certainly paid her enough for it." "Well, my mother may have sold me, but I haven't sold myself. Certainly not to a man I despise more than death itself." "What's that?" shouted Seijiro, throwing the red quilt over her head. Akemi screamed for all she was worth. "Scream, you bitch! Scream all you want. Nobody's coming." On the shoji, the pale sunlight mingled with the restless shadow of the pines, as though nothing had happened. Outside all was quiet, save for the distant lapping of the waves and the chatter of the birds. Deep silence followed Akemi's muffled wails. After a time, Seijuro, his face deathly pale, appeared in the outer corridor, holding his right hand over his scratched and bleeding left hand. Shortly afterward, the door opened again with a bang and Akemi emerged. With a cry of surprise, Seijuro, his hand now wrapped in a towel, moved as though to stop her, but not in time. The half-crazed girl fled with lightning speed. Seijuro's feet creased worriedly, but he did not pursue her as she crossed the garden and went into another part of the inn. After a moment, a thin, crooked smile appeared on his lips. It was a smile of deep satisfaction. A hero's passing. Uncle gone. What? Are you tired? Yes, a little. I thought so. I'm about to walk out myself, but this shrine has splendid buildings, doesn't it? Say, isn't that the orange tree they call the scarlet tree of Wakamiya Hachiman? Seems to be. It's supposed to be the first item in the 80 shiploads of tribute presented by the king of Sailor to Empress Jiangu when she conquered Korea. Look over there in the stable of the sacred horses. Isn't that a fine animal? It has certainly come in first at the annual horse race in Carmel. You mean the white one? Yes. What does that signboard say? It says if you boil the beans used in the horse fodder and drink the juice, it will keep you from crying or gritting your teeth at night. Do you want some? And Gilgon laughed. Don't be silly. Turning around, he asked, what happened to Matahachi? He seems to have wandered off. Oh, there he is, resting by the stage for the sacred dances. The old lady lifted her hand and called to her son. If we go over that way, we can see the original great torii, but let's go to the high lantern first. Matahachi followed along lazily. Ever since his mother had collared him in Osaka, he had been with them, walking, walking, walking. His patience was beginning to wear thin. 5 or 10 days of sightseeing might be all well and good, but he dreaded the thought of accompanying them to take their revenge. He had tried to persuade them that traveling together was a poor way to go about it, that it would be better for him to go and look for Musashi on his own. His mother wouldn't hear of it. It will be New Year soon, she pointed out, and I want you to spend it with me. We haven't been together to celebrate the New Year holiday for a long time, and this may be our last chance. Though Matahachi knew he couldn't refuse her, he had made up his mind to leave them a couple of days after the first of the year. Otsugi and Uncle Gon, possibly fearing they hadn't long to live, had become so wrapped up in religion they stopped at every shrine or temple possible, leaving offerings and making long supplications to the gods and Buddhas. They had spent nearly all of the present day at Sumiyoshi Shrine. Matahachi, bored stiff, was dragging his feet and pouting. Can't you walk faster? Otsugi asked in a testy voice. Matahachi's pace did not change. Fully as annoyed with his mother as she was with him, he grumbled, you hurry me along and make me wait, hurry and wait, hurry and wait. What am I to do with a son like you? When people come to a sacred place, it's only proper to stop and pray to the gods. I've never seen you bow before either a god or a Buddha, and mark my words, you will live to regret it. Besides, if you prayed with us, you wouldn't have to wait so long. What a nuisance, growled Matahachi. "Who's a nuisance?" cried Otsugi indignantly. For the first 2 or 3 days, everything happened as sweet as honey between them, but once Matahachi had got used to his mother again, he began to take exception to everything she did and said and to make fun of her every chance he got. When night came and they returned to the inn, she would make him sit down in front of her and give him a sermon, which served to put him in worse humor than before. "What a pair," Uncle Gon lamented to himself, trying to figure out a way to soothe the old man's pique and restore a measure of calmness to his nephew's scowling face. Sensing yet another sermon in the making, he moved to head it off. "Oh," he recalled cheerily, "I thought I smelled something good. They are selling broiled clams at that tea house over by the beach. Let's stop in and have some." Neither mother nor son displayed much enthusiasm, but Uncle Gon managed to steer them to the seaside shop, which was sheltered with thin reed blinds. While the other two got comfortable on a bench outside, he went in and came back with some sake. Offering a cup to Otsugi, he said amiably, "This will cheer Matahachi up a little. Maybe you are being a little hard on him." Otsugi looked away and snapped, "I don't want anything to drink." And Gilgon, caught in his own web, offered the cup to Matahachi, who, though still grumpy, proceeded to empty 3 jars as fast as he could, knowing full well this would make his mother livid. When he asked Uncle Gon for a fourth, Otsugi had had all she could take. "You have had enough," she scolded. "This isn't a picnic, and we didn't come here to get drunk. And you watch yourself too, Uncle Gon. You are older than Matahachi and should know better." Uncle Gon, as mortified as if only he had been drinking, tried to hide his face by rubbing his hands over it. "Yes, you're quite right," he said meekly. He got up and ambled off a few paces. Then it began in earnest, for Matahachi had struck at the roots of Otsugi's violent though brittle sense of maternal love and anxiety, and it was out of the question for her to wait until they returned to the inn. She lashed out furiously at him, not caring whether other people were listening. Matahachi stared at her with a look of sudden disobedience until she finished. "All right," he said. "I take it you've made up your mind that I'm an ungrateful lout with no self-respect, right?" "Yes. What have you done up till now that shows any pride or self-respect?" "Well, I'm not as worthless as you seem to think, but then you wouldn't have any way of knowing that." "Oh, I wouldn't, would I? Well, nobody knows a child better than his parents, and I think the day you were born was a bad day for the house of Hoinden. You just wait and see. I'm still young. One day when you're dead and buried, you will be sorry you said that." "Huh, I wish that were so, but I doubt that would happen in 100 years. It's so sad when you think of it." "Well, if it makes you so terribly sad to have a son like me, there's not much use in my hanging around any longer. I'm leaving." Steaming with rage, he stood up and walked away in long, determined strides. Taken by surprise, the old woman tried in a pitifully trembling voice to call him back. Matahachi paid no heed, and Gilgon, who could have ran and tried to stop him, stood looking intently toward the sea, his mind apparently occupied with other thoughts. Otsugi got up, then sat back down again. "Don't try to stop him," she said needlessly to Uncle Gon. "It's no use." Uncle Gon turned toward her, but instead of answering, said, "That girl out there is acting very funny. Wait here a minute." Almost before the words were out, he had chucked his hat under the eaves of the shop and headed like an arrow toward the water. "Idiot!" cried Otsugi. "Where are you going? Matahachi's She chased after him, but about 20 yards from the shop, snagged her foot in a clump of seaweed and fell flat on her face. Mumbling angrily, she picked herself up, her face and shoulders covered with sand. When she caught sight of Uncle Gone again, her eyes opened like mirrors. "You old fool, where are you going? Have you lost your mind?" she screamed, so excited that she looked as if she might be mad herself. She ran as fast as she could, following Uncle Gon's footsteps, but she was too late. Uncle Gon was already in up to his knees and pushing out farther. Enveloped in the white spray, he seemed almost in a trance. Still further out was a young girl, feverishly making her way toward deep water. When he had first spotted her, she had been standing in the shadow of the pines, looking blankly at the sea. Then suddenly she sped across the sand and into the water, her black hair streaming out behind her. The water was now halfway up to her waist, and she was rapidly approaching the point where the button fell off sharply. As he neared her, Uncle Gon called out frantically, but she pressed on. Suddenly, with an odd sound, her body disappeared, leaving a swirl on the surface. "Crazy child," cried Uncle Gon, "are you determined to kill yourself?" Then he himself sunk below the surface with a glug. Otsugi was running back and forth along the edge of the water. When she saw the two go down, her screaming turned to strident calls for help. Waving her hands, running, stumbling, she ordered the people on the beach to the rescue as though they were the cause of the accident. "Save them, you idiots! Hurry, or they will drown!" Minutes later, some fishermen brought the bodies in and laid them on the sand. "A love suicide?" asked one. "Are you joking?" said another, laughing. Uncle Gon had caught hold of the girl's obi and was still holding it, but neither he nor she was breathing. The girl presented a strange appearance, for though her hair was matted and messy, her powder and lipstick had not washed away, and she looked as if she were alive. Even with her teeth still biting her lower lip, her purple mouth bore the suggestion of a laugh. "I've seen her before somewhere," somebody said. "Isn't she the girl who was looking for shells on the beach a while ago?" "Yes, that's right. She was staying at the inn over there." From the direction of the inn, 4 or 5 men were already approaching. Among them, Seijuro, who breathlessly pushed his way through the crowd. "Akemi," he cried. His face went pale, but he stood perfectly still. "Is she a friend of yours?" asked one of the fishermen. "Yes, yes." "You better try and get the water out of her fast. Can we save her?" "Not if you just stand there gaping." The fisherman loosened Uncle Gon's grip, laid the bodies side by side, and began slapping them on the back and pressing them in the abdomen. Akemi regained her breathing fairly rapidly, and Seijuro, eager to escape the stares of the bystanders, had the men from the inn carry her back. "Uncle Gon, Uncle Gon!" Otsugi had her mouth to the old man's ear and was calling to him through her tears. Akemi had come back to life because she was young, but Uncle Gon, not only was he old, but he had had a fair amount of sake in him when he went to the rescue. His breath was stilled forever. No amount of urging on Otsugi's part would open his eyes again. The fisherman, giving up, said, "The old man's gone." Otsugi stopped crying loud enough to turn on them as though they were enemies rather than people trying to help. "What do you mean? Why should he die when that young girl was saved?" Her attitude suggested she was ready to attack them physically. She pushed the men aside and said firmly, "I'll bring him back to life myself. I'll show you." She set to work on the Uncle Gon, putting to use every method she could think of. Her determination brought tears to the eyes of the onlookers, a few of whom stayed to help her. Far from being appreciative, however, she ordered them around like hired help, complained that they were not pressing the right way, told them that they were doing what would not work, ordered them to build a fire, sent them off for medicine. Everything she did in the surliest fashion imaginable. To the men on the shore, she was neither a relative nor a friend, but just a stranger, and eventually even the most sympathetic became angry. Who is this old hag anyway? Growled one. Can't tell the difference between somebody who's unconscious and somebody who's dead. If she can bring him back, let her do it. Before long, Otsugi found herself alone with the body. In the gathering darkness, mist rose from the sea, and all that remained of the day was a strip of orange clouds near the horizon. Building a fire and sitting down beside it, she held Angelgon's body close to her. Angelgon, oh Angelgon, she wailed. The waves darkened. She tried and tried to bring warmth back to his body. The look on her face said that she expected him at any minute to open his mouth and speak to her. She chewed up pills from the medicine box in his obi and transferred them to his mouth. She held him close and rocked him. Open her eyes and go gone, she pleaded. Say something. You can't go away and leave me alone. We still haven't killed Musashi or punished that hussy Otsu. Inside the inn, Akemi lay in a fretful sleep. When Seijiro attempted to adjust her feverish head on the pillow, she mumbled deliriously. For a time he sat by her side in utter stillness, his face paler than hers, as he observed the agony he himself had heaped on her. He suffered too. It was he himself who, by animal force, had preyed on her and satisfied his own lust. Now he sat gravely and stiffly beside her, worrying about her pulse and her breathing, praying that the life that had for a time left her would be safely restored. In one short day, he had been both a beast and a man of compassion. But to Seijiro, given as he was to extremes, his conduct didn't seem inconsistent. His eyes were sad, the set of his mouth humble. He stared at her and murmured, trying to be calm, Akemi. It's not just me. Most other men are the same way. You will soon come to understand, though you must have been shocked by the violence of my love. Whether this speech was actually directed toward the girl or was intended to quiet his own spirit would have been difficult to judge, but he kept voicing the same sentiment over and over. The gloom in the room was like ink. The paper cover shoji muffled the sound of the wind and waves. Akemi stared and her white arms slipped out from under the covers. When Seijiro tried to replace the quilt, she mumbled, What's the date? What? How many days till New Year's? It's only 7 days now. He will be well by then, and will be back in Kyoto. He lowered his face toward hers, but she pushed it away with the palm of her hand. Stop, go away, I don't like you. He drew back, but the half-crazed words poured from her lips. Fool, beast, Seijiro remained silent. You are a beast. I don't want to look at you. Forgive me, Akemi, please. Go away, don't talk to me. Her hand waved nervously in the dark. Seijiro swallowed sadly but continued to stare at her. What's the date? This time he did not answer. Isn't it New Year's yet? Between New Year's and the 7th, every day he said he would be on the bridge. The message from Musashi every day, Gojo Avenue Bridge. It's so long till New Year's. I must go back to Kyoto. If I go back to the bridge, he will be there. Musashi, said Seijiro in wonderment. The delirious girl was silent. This Musashi. Miyamoto Musashi. Seijiro peered into her face, but Akemi said no more. Her blue eyes were closed. She was fast asleep. Dried pine needles tapped against the shoji, a horse whinnying. A light appeared beyond the partition, and a maid's voice said, "The young master is in here." Seijiro hastily went into the adjoining room, carefully shutting the door behind him. "Who is it?" he asked. "I'm in here." "Ueda Rohei," came the answer, clad in full travel garb and covered with dust. Rohei came in and sat down. While they exchanged greetings, Seijiro wondered what could have brought him here, since Rohei, like Toji, was one of the senior students and was needed at home. Seijiro would never have brought him on a spur-of-the-moment excursion. "Why have you come? Has something happened in my absence?" asked Seijiro. "Yes, and I must ask you to return immediately." "What is it?" As Rohei put both hands into his kimono and felt around, Akemi's voice came from the next room. "I don't like you. Beast, go away." The clearly spoken words were filled with fear. Anyone who would have thought she was awake and in danger. Startled, Rohei asked, "Who's that?" "Oh, that? Akemi took sick after she got here. She's feverish. Every once in a while she gets a little delirious." "That's Akemi?" "Yes, but never mind. I want to hear why you came." From the stomach wrapper under his kimono, Rohei finally extracted a letter and presented it to Seijiro. "It's this," he said without further explanation, then moved the lamp. The maid had left over to Seijiro's side. It's from Miyamoto Musashi." "Yes," said Rohei with force. "Have you opened it?" "Yes, I talked it over with the others, and we decided it might be important. So we opened and read it." Instead of seeing for himself what was in the letter, Seijiro asked somewhat hesitantly, "What does it say?" Though nobody had dared mention the subject to him, Musashi had remained in the back of Seijiro's mind. Even so, he had nearly convinced himself he would never run into the man again. The sudden arrival of the letter right after Akemi had spoken Musashi's name sent chills up and down his spine. Rohei bit his lip angrily. It has finally come. When he went away talking so big last spring, I was sure he would never set foot in Kyoto again. But can you imagine the conceit? Go on, look at it. It's a challenge, and he has the gall to address it to the entire house of Yoshioka, signing it with only his own name. He thinks he can take us all on himself. Musashi hadn't written any return address, nor was there any clue to his whereabouts in the letter. But he had not forgotten the promise he had written to Seijiro and his disciples. And with this second letter, the die was cast. He was declaring war on the house of Yoshioka. The battle would have to be fought, and it would be a fight to the finish, one in which samurai struggle to the death to preserve their honor and vindicate their skill with the sword. Musashi was laying his life on the line and challenging the Yoshioka school to do the same. When the time came, words and clever technical ploys would count for little. That Seijiro still did not grasp this fact was the greatest source of danger to him. He did not see that the day of reckoning was at hand, that this was no time to be idling away his days on empty pleasures. When the latter had arrived in Kyoto, some of the stauncher disciples, disgusted with the young master's undisciplined way of life, had grumbled angrily over his absence at so crucial a moment. Riled by the insult from the lone road from this Long roaning, they lamented that Campbell was no longer alive. After much discussion, they had agreed to inform Seijiro of the situation and make sure he returned to Kyoto immediately. Yet, now that the letter had been delivered, Seijiro merely put it on his knees and made no move to open it. With obvious irritation, Ryohei asked, "Don't you think you ought to read it?" "What? Oh, this," said Seijiro vacantly. He unrolled the letter and read it. His fingers began to tremble beyond his control. An unsteadiness caused not by the strong language and tone of Musashi's challenge, but by his own feeling of weakness and vulnerability. Akemi's harsh words of rejection had already destroyed his composure and upset his pride as a samurai. He had never before had felt so powerless. Musashi's message was simple and straightforward. "Have you been in good health since I last wrote? In accordance with my previous promise, I am writing to ask where, on what day, and at what hour we will meet. I have no particular preference and am willing to hold our promised match at the time and place designated by you. I request that you post a sign by the bridge at Gojo Avenue giving me your reply sometime before the 7th of the 7th day of the new year. I trust that you have been polishing your swordsmanship as usual. I myself feel that I have improved to a certain small extent. Shimen Miyamoto Musashi." Seijiro stuffed the letter into his kimono and stood up. "I'll return to Kyoto now," he said. This was said less out of resolution than because his emotions were so tangled. He couldn't bear to remain where he was a moment longer. He had to get away and put the whole dreadful day behind him as soon as possible. With much commotion, the innkeeper was called and requested to take care of Akemi, a task he accepted only with reluctance. Despite the many Seijiro pressed on him. "I'll use your horse," he said summarily to Ryohei. Like a fleeing bandit, he jumped into the saddle and rode rapidly away through the dark rows of trees, leaving Ryohei to follow along at a dead run. The drying pole. "A guy with a monkey? Yes, he came by a while ago. Did you notice which way he went?" "That way, toward Nojin Bridge. Didn't cross it though. Looked like he went into the swordsmith shop down there." After conferring briefly, the Yoshioka students stormed off, leaving their informant gaping in wonder at what the fuss was all about. Although it was just past the closing time for the shops along the east moat, the sword shop was still open. One of the men went in, consulted with the apprentice, and emerged shouting, "Tamer!" He's headed toward Tamer, and away they raced. The apprentice had said that just as he was about to hang the shutters for the night, a samurai with a long forelock had thrown a monkey down near the front door, seated himself on a stool, and asked to see the master. Told he was out, the samurai had said that he wanted to have his sword sharpened, but that it was much too valuable to entrust to anyone but the master himself. He had also insisted on seeing samples of the swordsmith work. Master himself. He had also insisted on seeing samples of the swordsmith work. The apprentice had politely shown him some blades, but the samurai, after looking them over, showed nothing but disgust. "It seems all you handle here are ordinary weapons," he said dryly. "I don't think I would better give you mine. It's much too good, the work of a beaten master. It's called the drying pole. See, it's perfect." He had then held it up with obvious pride. The apprentice, amused by the young man's boasting, mumbled that the only remarkable features of the sword seemed to be its length and its straightness. The samurai, apparently offended, abruptly stood up and asked directions to the Tamer Kyoto ferry landing. "I have my sword taken care of in Kyoto," he snapped. All the Osaka swordsmen I have visited seem to deal only in junk for ordinary foot soldiers. Sorry to have bothered you. With a cold look in his eyes, he had departed. The apprentice story infuriated them all the more as fresh evidence of what they already considered to be the young man's excessive conceit. It was clear to them that cutting off Gion Toji's top knot had made the braggart cockier than ever. That's our man for sure. We've got him now. He's as good as caught. The men continued their pursuit, not once stopping to rest, even when the sun began to set. Nearing the dock at Tamar, someone exclaimed, "We've missed it," referring to the last boat of the day. "That's impossible." "What makes you think we've missed it?" another asked. "Can't you see? Down there," said the first man, pointing to the wharf. "The tea shops are piling up their stools. The boat must have already pulled out." For a moment they all stood stock still, the wind gone from their sails. Then, on making inquiries, they found that the samurai had indeed boarded the last boat. They also learned it had just left and wouldn't be docking at the next stop, Toyosaki, for some time. The boats going upstream toward Kyoto were slow. They would have plenty of time to catch it at Toyosaki without even hurrying. Knowing this, they took their time over tea, rice cakes, and some cheap sweets before setting off at a brisk pace up the road along the riverbank. Ahead, the river looked like a silver snake winding away into the distance. The Nakatsu and Tama rivers joined to form the Yodo, and near this fork a light flickered midstream. "It's the ship," one man shouted. The seven became animated and soon forgot the piercing cold. In the bare fields by the road, drying rushes covered with frost glittered like slender steel swords. The wind seemed laden with ice. As the distance between themselves and the floating light narrowed, they were able to see the boat quite clearly. Soon one of the men, without thinking, shouted, "Hey there, slow down!" "Whine," came a response from on board. Annoyed at having attention drawn to themselves, his companions chided the loudmouth. The boat was stopping at the next landing anyway. It was sheer stupidity to give advance warning. Now that they had, however, everyone agreed that the best thing to do would be to make their demand for the passenger then and there. "There's only one of him, and if we don't challenge him outright, he may get suspicious, jump overboard, and escape." Keeping pace with the boat, they again called out to those on board. An authoritative voice, undoubtedly the captain's, demanded to know what they wanted. "Bring the boat to the bank." "What, are you crazy?" came the reply, accompanied by raucous laughter. "Land here." "Not on your life." "Then we'll be waiting for you at the next landing. We have some business with a young man you've got on board, wears a full log and has a monkey. Tell him if he has any sense of honor, he will show himself, and if you let him get away, we will drag every one of you ashore." "Captain, don't answer them," pleaded a passenger. "Whatever they say, just ignore it," counseled another. "Let's go on to Moriguchi. There are guards there." Most of the passengers were huddled in fear and talking in subdued tones. The one who had spoken so jauntily to the samurai on shore a few minutes earlier now stood mute. For him, as well as the others, safety lay in keeping some distance between the boat and the riverbank. The seven men, sleeves hitched up and hands on their swords, stayed with the boat. Once they stopped and listened, apparently expecting an answer to their challenge, but heard none. "Are you deaf?" one of them shouted. "We told you to tell that young braggart to come to the rail." "Do you mean me?" bellowed a voice from the boat. "He's there all right and brazen as ever." While the men pointed their fingers and squinted toward the boat, the murmuring of the passengers grew frenzied. To them it looked as though the men on the shore might at any moment leap on the deck. The young man with the long sword stood firmly poised on the gunwale, his teeth shining like white pearls in the reflected moonlight. There's no one else on board with a monkey, so I suppose it's me you are looking for. Who are you, freebooters down on your luck? A trouble of hungry actors? A trope of hungry actors? You still don't know who you're talking to, do you, monkey man? Watch your tongue when you address men from the house of Yoshioka. As the shouting match intensified, the boat neared the dike at which had both mooring posts and a shed. The seven ran forward to seal off the landing, but no sooner reached it than the boat stopped mid-river and began turning around in circles. The Yoshioka man grew livid. What do you think you're doing? You can't stay out there forever. Come in or we'll come out after you. The threats continued unabated till the prow of the boat began to move toward the bank. A voice roared through the cold air. Shut up, you fools! We're coming in. Better get ready to defend yourselves. Despite the other passengers' pleas, the young man had seized the boatman's pole and was bringing the ferry in. The seven samurai immediately assembled around where the prow would touch shore and watched the figure pulling the boat grow larger as he neared them. But then suddenly the boat's speed picked up and he was upon them before they knew it. As the hull scraped bottom, they fell back, and a dark round object came sailing across the reeds and locked itself around one man's neck. Before realizing it was only the monkey, they had all instinctively drawn their swords and sliced through the empty air around them. To disguise their embarrassment, they shouted impatient orders at one another. Hoping to stay out of the fray, the passengers huddled in a corner of the boat. The mayhem among the seven on the bank was encouraging, if somewhat puzzling, but no one yet dared to speak. Then in an instant all heads turned with a gasp as the boat's self-appointed pilot rammed his pole into the riverbed and vaulted, more lightly than the monkey, over the rushes to shore. This caused even greater confusion, and without pausing to regroup, the Yoshioka men scampered toward their enemy in single file. This couldn't have put him in a better position to defend himself. The first man had already advanced too far to turn back when he realized the stupidity of his move. At that moment, every martial skill he had ever learned deserted him. It was all he could do to bare his teeth and wave his sword erratically in front of him. The handsome young man, aware of his psychological advantage, seemed to grow in stature. His right hand was behind him, on his sword hilt, and his elbow protruded above his shoulder. So you are from the Yoshioka school, are you? That's good. I feel as if I know you already. One of your men was kind enough to allow me to remove his top knot. Apparently that wasn't enough for you. Have you all come for a haircut? If you have, I'm sure I can oblige you. I'm having this blade sharpened soon anyway, so I don't mind putting it to good use. As the declaration ended, the drying pole split first the air and then the cringing body of the nearest swordsman. Seeing the comrade slain so easily paralyzed their brains. One by one, they backed into one another in retreat like so many colliding balls. Taking advantage of their obvious disorganization, the attacker swung his sword sideways at the next man, delivering a blow so solid it sent him tumbling with a shriek into the rushes. The young men glared at the remaining five, who had in the meantime arranged themselves around him like flower petals, reassuring each other that their present tactic was foolproof. They regained their confidence to the point of taunting the young men again. But this time, their words had a tremulous, hollow ring. Finally, with a loud battle cry, one of the men sprang forward and swung. He was sure he had made a cut. In fact, his sword point fell short of its target by 2 full feet and finished its arc by clanging loudly against a rock. The man fell forward, leaving himself wide open. Rather than slay such easy prey, the young man leaped sideways and swung at the next man over. While the death scream still rang through the air, the other three took to their heels. The young man, looking murderous, stood holding his sword with both hands. "Cowards," he shouted, "come back and fight. Is this the Yoshioka style you boast of? To challenge a person and then run away? No wonder the house of Yoshiokas has become a laughing stock. To any self-respecting samurai, such insults were worse than being spat on."